Welcome back to another episode, Logistics News Madly with La. Wild, can you chill out, mate? Come on, buddy. I'm just when I shoot, you gotta start making all the note. So this week, the Trump Tariff saga continues.
We'll be announcing some additional tariffs over the next few days.
He has threatened that he's going to bring on more tariffs on the rest of the world. He's been toying with the idea that he's going to implement around about 2 to 8% low-level tariff on Australian goods. For those of you who might not be well versed on the international trade front, let me explain. Australia and USA have a free trade agreement. What does that mean? That pretty much almost all the products between the two countries have a 0% duty, 0% tariff. That has been going on for a good number of decades. Our two countries has been enjoying the free trade for some time. And whilst there might not be a lot of goods going back and forth, it's still worth upwards of $30 billion a year for Australia. So if he's going to apply 2 to 8% tariff on those trade, people are going to feel a pinch. Again, I don't want to keep on harping on about it. We are meant to be one of their closest allies. Pay $400 billion for 12 submarines, which I will predict that will never get delivered. Instead, we'll be operating US submarines and allowing them to have a foothold into more of our bases in around Australia. I'm not whinging and complaining about that, so be it. We're allies, we need them, so forth. On the flip side, Australia, USA, we don't trade a lot. The products that are trading are usually of high value nature. It's really products that has to come from these two countries to one another, because let's face it, if it could be done in Asia, done cheaper, same quality, it would have already gone to Asia. And this is what I've always said, the trade between Australia and USA has been dropping sharply over the years. All of the simple stuff migrated to China. Cheaper costs, fantastic. What was retained has some intellectual property about it. But as China's manufacturing prowess and skill sets and specializations ramp up year after year after year, these necessities from USA or from Australia to each other are dropping with it. China can make the highly technical products now. And I think the only remaining things are probably protected because there's certain parts we use of certain machineries that has to be that part, otherwise it's not going to work and what have you and so forth. 2 to 8%. Is that going to be the end of the world? No, it's not. Because whatever's going back and forth, they're high value items anyway. So an extra 2 to 8%, someone's going to lose out. But really, probably the end buyer, because whoever's trading those products, they're going to pass it on. Final point I want to touch on the Trump tariffs. Let's just for argument's sake, say from China to go to US, 25% tariff. A pair of Nike shoes, for example, I'm pretty confident it will cost no more than $20 US in terms of its cost landed. Last time I checked, they were probably selling about, on average, about $150 US a pair. So there's quite a hefty bit of margin. And I'm just thinking, well, 20 bucks, 25%, it's going to be $25. It's still a hell of a lot lower than $150 retail. Is Nike going to just put the $5 on the $150 and go $155? I don't think they will. It'd be silly if they just put the percentage increase on the cost, because then you'll know how much they're paying for the shoes. So at the end of the day, you as the final buyer of those goods are going to get punished again, because you're going to be paying more than the 25% implemented. That's what I suspect, because I don't think these giant companies are just going to be so straightforward, just passing whatever the increase is. They'll probably be a little bit opportunistic by passing a bit more down. So adding as a supplemental to the Trump tariffs, he has just recently announced the taxes on vehicles. It's going to be painful for a lot of nations, especially Japan, such a loyal little footstool for America, and they're just being absolutely hammered. Let's look at the implications of all this, right? It just simply means Americans are gonna not be able to afford new cars. If you're a second-hand used car salesman, this could be your time to shine. Americans just love their cars, and I love cars too, so power to cars. But with all these tariffs being implemented, it just means that the choices of vehicles is gonna be severely curtailed for the American public. Why is he doing it? He wants to promote American manufacturing. Okay, you can hire the labor at more costs, which the billionaires won't do. Believe me, they won't do it. But just say, for example, pigs are flying outside my window. Where are they going to get the parts from? It still has to come from overseas. So you've got the double whammy now. What can the car makers do? Well, they have to wind those models down where the value of the vehicle, it no longer justifies the price tag. Well, in that situation, what that means is that, well, nobody's going to be buying those cars, so you kill those lines off. Yeah, some dire times ahead. I can't really see the light at the end of the tunnel here. Federal Reserve, the dear leader Powell has made an announcement, very dovish announcement. They're gonna instill 2 more interest rate cuts on this year. That's pretty much locked in. Meanwhile, suggesting that unemployment is going up, inflation is still not where they are and still remain stubbornly higher than target. And yet he is wanting to reduce interest rate. So none of that makes any sense. When you have unemployment higher than where they need to be, when you have inflation rates still higher, which means that costs are still elevated, you want to tighten up a bit more, right? But the fact that he's committing to 2 more interest rate drops, it's contrary to what the data suggests. The share market loved it for some reason because obviously, yeah, interest rate comes down, easy money. But I think we're on a sinking ship. And the economy is not going to be rosy. The wishy-washy messaging and in fact conflicting messaging from the Reserve Bank further consolidates on how dire the situation is really behind the curtains. A lot of our economies will be facing a sharp downturn, especially when people start to lose their jobs and not having enough employment. Definitely going to affect trade, right? Because when people are scared, they're not going to buy. And with all these tariffs going on and so forth, people are already very, very nervous about what to order, when to order, and all of that stuff. Coupled with a fledgling economy and demand is sort of nowhere to be seen. Yeah, nothing is sort of stacking up to be positive. From a UK logistics article that we read saying that basically logistics costs, staffing costs is in fact the highest in terms of increases amongst all the sectors. For example, manufacturing had like 25% increases in labor costs and other sectors were like 14%, 18%. But logistics staffing costs was like over 40%. I'm not sure what those figures are in Australia, but this is, I think, was a UK article, so it's true for them. Let's face it, when's the last time you heard a young kid that goes,
I want to do logistics?
I never heard one. Our biggest challenge in our industry since the dawn of time is trying to find people to join. Because let's face it, if you're in logistics, and be true to yourself now, do you really love what you do? The reality is we don't get enough quality people join our industry, and the labor force is a representation of that reality. Most people join our industry because it's convenient, because it's down the road from their house, or because Uncle Bob or Cousin Jane is in the company and got me an interview and I got a role. It's very rare that somebody actively studies logistics because nobody even understands what logistics is, let alone wanting to join it. And once they do join it, they normally find most companies are quite backward, old-fashioned, because we are a blue-collar industry. It's not really a space for creativity or ingenuity. It is moving stuff from A to B. And insult to injury, you got to deal with people, and you got to deal with people's idiosyncrasies and their wishes and wants, fears, and you got to be a psychologist sometimes to be a freight person because we cop so much crap. So the ones that are in it, most employers, if they're half decent, will want to pay good money to keep them. Our people, we needed to provide a lot of incentive for the good ones to remain with us and to continue on, and that adds to the cost. So if you're a customer, a shipper looking at this video, be mindful. Before pressing us for the cheapest rate, understand the job isn't easy. Not so much the moving the stuff from A to B. Job isn't easy because we got to talk to so many different people to get that shipment moved. Then we got to deal with you. And because you have all your wishes and wants on that shipment, your focus is just on that one shipment, getting that right and perfect. You don't want anything to go wrong. And we get it. But understand, we got to deal with 1,000 of you. It's not an easy job. Believe me, I don't wish it on my worst enemy. So next time you'll consider pricing for what you pay, just have that bit of empathy. So Amazon in USA wants to get into LTL. This terminology is uniquely American. It simply means less than truckload. In Australia, we don't use that term. We just call it, I guess, freight. Pallet load. Move a pallet down the road, mate. Of course, in the USA, because the quantities that they do, most of the companies, large organizations, they do a lot of full truckload, FTL. When LTL is usually reserved for the smaller companies that doesn't do as much Whereas in Australia, moving a pallet down the road is quite common because our size of economy is quite small, and most of the companies that exist are SMEs, so therefore the requirement for full trailer loads is far less. The report was pretty much saying a lot of the retail, like the storefronts, demand from truckload providers or LTL truckload providers will significantly reduce if Amazon is to get into that space. So they will take a lot of that demand away, which will free up capacity and maybe even put a few blokes out of the business. How will that impact the market? Well, look, Amazon's been trying to go up and down the supply chain, try to vertically integrate, horizontally integrate, diagonally integrate every single direction, right? By and large, it's been a bit of a hit and miss. They previously have launched global logistics, right, which is freight forwarding, which is one of our core businesses. And from whatever reports that we've seen from the US, there hasn't been a great experience. On paper, it makes a lot of sense because why? They have a platform, right? They're like, hey, just sell it on our platform, use our logistics services, and we can give you some incentives so you don't have to worry about when your stuff comes into our warehouse. We're going to cover all that. And I actually commended on them when they first launched the global logistics business. I'm going, wow, this is really the biggest threat and challenge to our industry, because if they do that well, the customers are like, well, of course, I'm going to use the platform which I'm selling my goods at, which is my livelihood, to move my freight to. That way I just give it to them, I don't have to worry. But it doesn't work in practice. Well, not in the scale that I'm sure they are hoping to. Why? Because logistics is a slow moving industry. So many sets of hands. It's laborious, it's manual, and most of the time that requires good people. If you don't have enough good people, it's not going to work as well as you hope it to be. This is the challenge faced by industry, be a small guy like us or a DHL. They can run a warehouse smoothly, fine. But when it comes to international logistics, you require so many different sets of hands. You need really good quality people. And when you're such a large company, you can get it right in one sector, one region, one city. But trying to get it right around the world, good luck. So on the LTL front, again, can they manage the truckload? Yeah, I probably think they can. Is it going to impact a lot of good companies? They will, but whoever they're going to buy to supplement that service that they want to bring in-house is going to have a windfall because they're going to get a lot of money from Amazon. All the other trucking companies might lose out, but don't fret, guys. One thing I've learned, doesn't matter how much asset you have in this industry, you're always going to need other people to back it up. You can't just always plan on a bluebird day. You got to plan for the rainy days. And I think Amazon, they're going to know. It doesn't matter how much asset we have or running ourselves, we're going to need plan B, plan C, plan Ds, right? So there'll be enough. Let the dust settle. Things will happen. It is what it is. You know what? And if I can improve the industry for the better at the sacrifice of a few companies that don't operate well, you know what? I generally view that as a positive. Final topic for this week is Red Sea. Now, this is quite an important message, guys. For a while now, we haven't been talking about the Red Sea because why? Trump has dominated the news, but the disruption there hasn't stopped. With the recent escalation of Gaza again, that area is fast becoming volatile very quickly. Not that it was any better. Just because the media lens has gone off it doesn't mean all of a sudden the problem has gone away. It hasn't. The reality is the disruptions in that sector of the world, the Suez Canal, the issue is there. But with the US now taking more active engagement, bombing Yemen, more chaos, more disruptions going to come to supply chain in that sector. No insurance company will already touch any vessel that comes down that waterway, because why would you? You're asking for trouble. They're in the business of making money, not paying you money. If you're the rest of the world and you're shipping out of the Europe zone and that has to use that waterway, be prepared this year, guys. This is the time where you really talk to your trusty service provider or freight service provider like us. Ask us on a daily basis what's happening, what's going on, what's the capacity, what are the shipping lines talking about, where are the rates happening, plan. Don't wait till the 24th hour and then go, oh, where's my container? The world is a lot larger than your container. The shipping lines, guess what? Every time there's more disruption, guess what they're going to do? Hey? They're going to increase costs and you're going to cop it again. And this is also a time where shipping line loves to play games. They love these disruptions. As soon as any sort of disruption, let me bump up the rates. That's what they do. That's what they have always done. It's the same playbook. So if you're importing out of Europe or anywhere in the world, even for example, US port calls, right? Trump saying, well, any Chinese owned vessel or whatever, they're going to pay $1.5 million per berth on the wharfs. That's going to take a great part of their fleet out of the circulation for those ports, which means that it's going to have a massive capacity crunch in the US. Now, if that happens, your prices are going to go up. So don't assume just because, oh, market's quiet, the price should drop down. Yeah, well, it should, but it doesn't work that way. Shipping lines will use any reason to up your rates. So be prepared for it. Talk to people like us. We will tell you what's happening. Oh, and guys, to satisfy my madness, share with us your stories, right? Let me share your story with our viewers. I really want to encourage my Australian colleagues in the industry. You could be on a desk, you could be working at the ports, you can be working at the airport, you can be a truck driver. If you got something that you want to share, you want to bring a subject matter that isn't reported by our crappy news outlets that represents our industry, and that you think it's worthwhile and it's just interesting, or if it's just funny, your engagement with us is highly sought after. Wrapping up on this week's episode, I want to leave you a parting message which I read from a young lady, which is on the backdrop here, Bella Bradford, who taped herself preparing for her day because she's suffering from cancer. And that's the message I want to leave with you all. Remember that you live every day and you only die once. So make every day count. My name's La Chang. Think Global Logistics. Thank you for watching.